Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Perdue, welcome. So you don't need me to tell you that the farmers of the state of Wisconsin are deeply concerned by the Chinese threats of tariffs and retaliation. Wisconsin producers of corn and soybeans, of pork, beef, ginseng, and cranberries have all been in touch with me and my office to share with me the devastating impacts that they fear these tariffs could have on their business. As you also know, and I think some of my colleagues have questioned you about this already, the recently passed omnibus legislation provided your department with additional resources to address the impacts of retaliatory tariffs on agricultural products. I support taking action to punish China for its cheating and to create a level playing field for American workers and farmers. But I also believe that the Trump administration should act to prevent harmful retaliation against farmers in Wisconsin and across the country. So I'm interested in knowing what specific steps you're going to take to help farmers who may be impacted by retaliation by China, and will you use the authorities provided in the recently enacted fiscal year 2018 agriculture appropriations bill?
We will, and if needed, and we very much appreciate that. Obviously, our first goal is to negotiate ourselves out of the saber rattling that's occurred and to make sure that these market disruptions don't have a permanent impact. There's enough anxiety, as you well know, already with lower commodity prices. The trade disruptions and disaster and drought and hurricanes and all those have a very cumulative, stressful effect on our producers. So our goal, obviously, is to finish NAFTA, which is important to your state as well, and then to work on the negotiations with China so we don't have to get into mitigation efforts. But very thankfully to you all in the 2018 omnibus, you all gave us the liberty to use some of those tools at the disposal to make sure that our farmers don't bear the brunt of retaliation.
So I want to just dig a little deeper on this. I know there's a lot of what ifs because I agree we want to negotiate our way out of the threats and possibility of retaliation. But have you determined what criteria you would use to ensure prompt action in support of farmers if we get to that place?
What we have done so far is on a weekly basis look at the market impact. I've talked with our economist, Dr. Johansson, may be able to describe more deftly what the calculations of determining the market trade impact or the trade dispute impacts are versus normal or seasonal market disruptions. What we don't want to do is to create an environment where we take normal trade fluctuations there and attribute them to trade disruptions in a retaliatory kind of way. Our economists tell us that we have very good tools. They feel very precise tools to identify that. The authorities you gave us in 2018, there's also Section 32 that I think cranberries have used before that are possibilities to use.
And ginseng is another one that we are hearing threats about. Yeah. So, as you know, our dairy industry is facing major challenges. We have low prices, oversupply of milk, and unfair trade practices from our Canadian neighbors, all at a time when other export markets are uncertain and the NAFTA market is being debated, or at least market access. I have two questions now that dairy farmers can enroll in the margin protection program with the revisions that is, lower costs and better coverage. And I want to make sure that our farmers have the chance to get enrolled. So on these two topics, the status of the administration's effort to follow through on President Trump's promise to ensure Canada changes its unfair dairy pricing scheme. And number two, what are you doing to get the word out about this enrollment period and to help farmers have really high-quality information about the expansion and improvements in the MPP and dairy insurance options?
I think the good news is I was just on an RV tour last week through Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky, and word travels pretty fast in the ag sector. The dairy members that showed up for those hearings understood already. We had made the announcement about the application, and they know about the ability to go back to January 1, and we know that it's already been triggered there. So dairy men have to be and women have to be pretty good business people. They've already calculated they want to sign up. It's been pretty widely distributed. The information should be out at our FSA offices already to have specific FAQs over the various components there. But we think it'll be a program that the dairy industry will flock to, unlike the previous one that the MPP had kind of got a bad name. I think you all have helped to retool it in a way that they understand it can be very helpful. Certainly, we have impressed upon Ambassador Lighthizer almost on a weekly basis how important it is to get the dairy situation with Canada. He has some larger issues. I think we would love to have any other help in impressing upon the ambassador how important it is to make sure that the dairy situation in regard to Canada is also resolved. I'm not as optimistic as I would like to be.
Mr. Chairman, I know my time has run out. May I just put in one more question? Thank you so much. Secretary Perdue, I mentioned Wisconsin products like cranberries and ginseng. They don't have futures markets. And so without this price indicator information, our producers are concerned that USDA won't have the data and information it needs to respond to the retaliatory tariffs if they occur until it's too late. So I want to ask, how is the USDA monitoring the impact of tariffs on specialty crops like cranberries and ginseng?
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Dr. Johansson to tell us how we monitor the cash prices when there's no future or board there to do that. But we have a pretty good discovery price network through our NAS program of looking at markets every year. But he'll have a more precise answer.
Thank you, Senator, for the question, and Secretary for giving me an opportunity to say a couple words. Certainly, with respect to some of the specialty crops, we don't have futures prices, and so we rely on price signals that we get from AMS, for example. They're out there asking what market prices are. We know what the trade value is for those commodities going to China, because they're certainly tracked through our trade data. And we know what it will mean if we face a 25% tariff on some of those commodities. And so we'll use the tools that we would normally use in any kind of trade dispute to analyze what the potential effects would be.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.